I've always struggled with cold outreach, not because I didn't know how to do it, but because no tool ever felt like it was built for me. CRMs were either way too clunky, too expensive, or just designed for a completely different way of working. So I just didn't use them. And I lost a lot of opportunities. Because of that, I decided to stop adapting to tools and start building one around me. And in one afternoon with Claude Code, I had a fully automated lead generation and outreach system, scraping qualified leads from Indeed every morning, scoring them with GPT-4o, generating personalized pitches, and giving me a clean local CRM to work through them one by one. After just one day of actually using it, I had my first responses and a call already scheduled. In this video, I'm going to walk you through every single part of this system, how it works, what it does, and why it actually gets used, unlike every other CRM I've ever tried. At the end, I'll give you the exact Claude Code prompt so you can create something like this for yourself, even if you've never written a line of code. Let's get into it. If you've ever tried to do cold outreach seriously, you know how annoying the tooling situation is. Because on one hand, you have these massive CRM platforms that are built for sales teams of 50 people. Way too complex, way too expensive, and honestly just overwhelming when all you want to do is send a few good messages and track what's happening. And then on the other hand, you have the approach of not using any CRM at all, and you end up losing track of everything anyway. So what most people do, and I definitely did this, is they kind of patch something together. A note on the phone here, a spreadsheet there, maybe an Airtable base they set up once and never touch again. And the result is the same every time. The system doesn't feel natural to use, so you stop using it and leads fall through the cracks. And it's not that you're lazy or disorganized, it's just that none of these tools were built for the way you specifically work. And that's a really important distinction. So at some point I just thought, what if I stopped trying to fit into someone else's system and build my own, like fully custom, designed around the way I actually do outreach, with exactly the features I actually need and nothing I don't. And that's what I did. I sat down with Claude Code and described exactly the system I wanted, how I find my leads, how I want to qualify them, what my outreach workflow looks like, how I want to track everything. And Claude Code built it. Not a prototype, an actual working system. Automated pipeline, local web interface, CRM log, the whole thing in a few hours. And the reason this is so powerful isn't just that it works, it's that it works for me. Every button, every view, every piece of data in there is exactly where I want it because I'm the one who designed it. That feeling of using a tool that actually fits you, it completely changes how consistently you show up and do the work. Alright, so let me show you how this actually works. The whole system runs in 4 stages and I'm going to walk you through each one. So step number 1 in my entire sales outreach is scraping Indeed job descriptions with Apify. Because my approach is that if a company is hiring for a certain role, let's say an AI automation engineer, it is a strong indicator that they would also be a good fit for my company as I offer AI automation. Because of that, in the first step, I want to scrape Indeed job descriptions. Indeed is a job platform that contain certain keywords, for example, N8N, AI automation, Claude Code, and so on. And I set up that system in a way that every day when I open my MacBook, in the background, the scraping process already starts completely automatically. After that, the system is scoring the companies, is evaluating the company fit, and is scraping additional contact information so that I have the opportunity to actually reach out to these companies. I just want to reach out to those where I have a high likelihood of having a good match between what they are looking for and what I am offering. Because of that, I instructed the system in a way that it calculates a score, how good of a match it actually is, and it also writes a little evaluation why it would be a good fit for me to work with that company. And only if a certain score threshold is exceeded, the system is scraping additional contact information. Because I don't want to scrape information about companies who are not even a good fit to work with. After that, in step number 3, the system is writing 3 different LinkedIn messages for the CEO of the company and also 3 different mail pitches. What is the idea here? It is not that I want to send 3 different mails to the same company and 3 different messages to the same CEO. It is just that I want to have a little selection, and then I can manually check which one is the best suitable for exactly that kind of company and their job description. And later, when I show you how I actually reach out to these companies with that system, I will also explain to you why I still do that step manually. It could also be automated, but when it comes to the performance, I just realized that it is very important to do that step still manually. So step number 1 to 3 is basically the lead generation and lead enrichment step. In step number 4, it's about the operation of the outreach dashboard. You already saw it in the introduction. I have an entire system with a graphical user interface, and this is also created but also operated by Claude Code in the background. Important to understand, the system was built by Claude Code but can also run without it. And this becomes crystal clear if you look at the system design on the next slide. In a second, we will fire the system up so that you see how the leads are actually scraped and enriched and how I then send out the messages with the system. But before that, I want to show you the big picture real quick so that you understand how these different parts of the system work together. So first of all, Claude Code is the designer and creator of the entire system. At the end of the day, everything you see here is a Claude Code project. In the project, we have different skills responsible for the different stages that I just presented, and Claude Code created those skills. It integrated all the systems involved, and of course, it also created the graphical user interface and is also controlling it. So how does it work now? We have in the background several Python applications that were created by Claude Code. And one of these Python applications is using Apify to scrape the Indeed job descriptions. Then we use OpenAI to evaluate them, and then everything gets stored in a nice looking Google Sheet. So Google Sheet is basically the database in the background that I use to store and enrich the entire data. Why did I decide for Google Sheets? Very simple. We could also have used something like SQL, but I wanted to have the opportunity to also visually see what is going on in the database, and I also want to have the opportunity to change that real quick, for example, just from the phone. And this is possible because everything is based on Google Sheet. And here on the right side, we see the graphical user interface, the dashboard that Claude Code created for me. So this is basically representing the entire information in the Google Sheet, but it is an application that is running locally on my computer, and I can see the dashboard in the Safari browser of my MacBook. In a second, I will demonstrate you how I work with the graphical user interface and why it is designed the way it is designed. At that point, you just have to understand that here I basically see all the data. I can also manipulate the data, and I can send out messages via LinkedIn and also via email. And of course, everything I do is also logged in a nice looking CRM so that I can see how many people I actually contacted and also which message I sent to which person. That's it regarding the overall system design. And now we head over to Claude Code and we fire the system up. Now we are in the Claude Code project that is responsible for everything that I just talked about. And when we go here to the left side to skills, we see we have different skills that are responsible for the different stages that I presented to you in the introduction. This skill is responsible for scraping Indeed. Then we have one skill for analyzing the companies. We have one skill for generating the pitches, and we have one skill that is responsible for the entire user interface that we will use in a second. And as I already mentioned, I set up the system in a way that it runs automatically once a day whenever I open up the MacBook. For that, I need another skill, and this is the full lead run. And all that skill is doing is basically combining all the others. It is running the entire pipeline in one go. If you go to scripts, we see that in the background, we have different Python applications that are all created by Claude Code. And these are basically responsible for the execution of each of the steps of the system. So let's test it out. So I will just use the / command for that, which is full lead run. And you see when I execute that, exactly that skill will execute. And this is responsible for running all the other skills in the right order. So scraping, analyzing, enrichment, and also updating the dashboard. And you see, it is asking me only two questions. Where do you want to scrape and how many leads do you want? In that example, I go with scrape German companies and give me 100 results. We send this out, and then you will see that the system starts the first step of the process, which is calling the skill of the Indeed job scraper. You see step number 1, scraping Indeed. Here we are at Apify and we already see that the scraping process already started. We see here the results going up. We also see what we pay for that. And this is exactly the platform and the scraper that Claude Code is accessing to actually get the job description of different companies who are hiring in the AI automation area. Remember, we set up 100 results, so in a few seconds we should be done. Great, the scraping is done. We have 100 results. And if we go back now to Claude Code, we see we are at step number 2, analyzing and enriching. And in that step, GPT-4o is running in the background to analyze the job descriptions, compare it with what I am offering, and then it is calculating the score and is coming up with a evaluation how good of a fit that company would be for my services. And then when a certain threshold is exceeded, we set that to 70, also additional information is scraped. For example, the CEO name, the CEO LinkedIn, and also the email address and the website of the company. But the threshold is important because we only want that kind of information for companies where it actually would make sense. So here we are now in the Google Sheet that I mentioned. This is basically the database in the background. And we see that we already have new leads. We see the job title, the job description, the company name, the score rationale, which is the explanation how it came up with the score. And then we have additional information because the score was 70 or above. So let's check out the others. We also see right here, for example, the evaluation is still ongoing. And if we go to Apify, we see that in the background, Claude Code is accessing now a Google search scraper to actually find out the additional company information, such as the website and the CEO LinkedIn and so on. What is also pretty interesting is that this is super cheap. You see, we just pay 1 cent per result, so not a big deal at all. And now it is done. You see, it took a few seconds and then it calculated the score, and then it also found all the other information. For example, the name of the CEO and also the LinkedIn profile. And the system will now go through all these leads. It will evaluate all of them. And important to note, for example, here we see 6 Germany is a huge enterprise, and I instructed the system to not consider these huge enterprises. You see, it gave it a lead score of 0, and then it is also not scraping additional information. This is exactly what I want the system to do. The system will now go through all these leads and will evaluate them. And then when it is done, it comes to step number 3. And it is also done. You see, it jumped to step number 3, generating the pitches. So let's check out the pitches. You see, in the Google Sheet, we have different sheets, different tables. And if we go now to the latest pitches, we see how those get generated. So let's go to the very end. And here they are. You see, right now we are generating them and they are highly personalized. So these are basically messages that we can send to the CEOs of these companies. We always have a title because this is demanded in LinkedIn, and we have suitable messages already customized for the CEO of the company. These messages are in German, but you will see later in the system, I can just convert them with 1 click into English in case I find out, okay, the CEO is actually English speaking. So these are the LinkedIn messages, but we also have cold emails. You see, if we go down here to the very bottom of the system, we see that the system is also writing suitable emails that we can send out to the team. All that is completely done automatically and normally running in the background whenever I just open up the MacBook on a new day. So normally I don't see anything of that. So going back to Claude Code, we see that the entire pipeline is completed. And we see that Claude Code also skipped the duplicates. Remember, I scraped 100 results and 94 of them were duplicates. So they were already in my CRM. And of course, I don't want to handle those again. So only 6 of them were actual real leads and only 5 of them qualified with a score higher than 70. Then we enriched the 5 companies and we also generated the pitches. And now comes the fun part. They're working with the actual CRM. So here we are in the graphical user interface of my personal CRM and outreach system that is of course also created entirely by Claude Code. I used that on my local computer in the browser in Safari, and in the background it is basically a Python application running on the computer. So this has nothing to do with the internet. And everything you see here is customized exactly to the way how I think and work. So for you, it maybe would look completely different. But for me, this makes a lot of sense. On the right side, we see we have 81 leads available at that point. And here on the left side, we can just scroll through all of them and we see right away the company name, the score, and if I already contacted them via LinkedIn or email. So when I want to work with a certain lead, I can just scroll through them and then click on a company. The company is opening up and then I see a beautiful overview about the company. Of course, we have the company name, what kind of position they are looking for, and we have the lead score. Then we have all the possibilities to contact them. For example, the website, the company LinkedIn, we have the name of the CEO, and we also have here a link to the LinkedIn profile of the CEO. We have the email and also when we scrape that lead. Then we have the explanation of the large language model, why this is a good fit. And down here, we have the job description, exactly how it was presented on Indeed. If I wanted to change something here manually, I can do that. I can just click here on the button and then I can change the data. For example, when I find out that the LinkedIn profile is not working, I can just manually search another profile and enter it here. And this is something that I discovered while working with the system, and because of that I implemented the feature. So let's say I want to contact now that company. I can just click here to contact lead. Then we see again the job description of Indeed on the left side. So I exactly know what they are looking for. And on the right side, I see the 3 LinkedIn pitches and I also see the email pitches. You see everything in one platform. So let's test it out with LinkedIn. Let me walk you really quick through the process, how I actually work with that system. On the left side, we see the job description. And before I select one of these messages that were prepared to be sent to the CEO, I just want to double check real quick which one of them is actually the most suitable for the job description. In the past, I also completely automated that process, and I just discovered that even though AI is very powerful, the best results can be achieved if you do that checking process manually. Because oftentimes it's just a single word that sounds a little bit off or not suitable. And if you do that checking process manually, you can increase the performance quite a lot. In a second, I will send out a message so that you see how this works in action, but I want to show you another cool feature that I implemented. Let's say I already see right away at the name of the person that this is probably not a German speaking person. I can just click on that button down here where it says translate, and then the entire message is translated into English. This only takes a few seconds, and then you see we have the same message, but everything is translated into English. This is also something that I discovered while working with the system, that oftentimes I see this is maybe an Asian sounding name, and then I check the profile and I see, okay, this is actually not a German, so I want to translate the message into English. And in the past I had to do that like manually with ChatGPT, copy, pasting and so on, and it just takes time. So I just implemented the feature to translate it. In that example, I want to go with the first message. I really like it, it is suitable, and then comes the fun part. We click here to open LinkedIn. And then I set up the system so that it already separates the screen into 2 different parts. And on the left side, we have my dashboard with the messages. And on the right side, we have the LinkedIn profile of the CEO. To respect the privacy of that gentleman, I will not further engage with the system now and send the message, but you get the idea. When I send the message, I can just hit here mark as sent. And then you see that we have this information sent, and basically the sending option is blocked. Of course, we can also send an email. I show you that real quick. Here we have the exact same system. I also can double check. I have the different messages, and these are addressed now to the team, not the CEO. And here I also implemented another feature, the so-called test mode. When I click on the test mode, I can send the same email to myself. Why did I do that? In the past, I discovered that these systems sometimes fail, sometimes they make errors. And because of that, when there's a very, very good lead that I have to make sure it is 100% the perfect email, I just want to have the opportunity to test it out, to first see the email, and then I send it to the client. So when I go with test mode and I hit here send email, it is sending the email to to my own email. And here it is. This is exactly how my emails look like. When we click on them, we see we have a perfectly structured HTML email. Everything looks nice and clean. And this is exactly how also the company will receive that email. All I have to do is uncheck the test mode and then send it out. I don't do that for now because I want to show you the CRM. So if we click now to the CRM, we see now how many companies I already contacted that week and also how many calls are already scheduled or booked. How is that working? I can just manually enter when I have a call with a certain person to track everything. And then when we go to the right side, we see all the companies that I already contacted, and we also see if I send them an email, a LinkedIn message, or if I already have a call scheduled with them. This is, for example, the last gentleman that we just contacted. And then we see that the job description is also loading again. So I could just fly through it again. And then we see here again the LinkedIn profile. We see the message that I sent out to the person, and we again have the job description. Why? Maybe I get a response in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, and I don't really know, okay, what was this all about? Then I can just read again the job description and I'm right back into the game. And if we go back to the leads and to the company that I just contacted, we see the LinkedIn icon is now grayed out. That means I already sent a message. As I said, I just worked since a few days with the system. I truly love it. It is amazing. And it already got me responses. And I also already scheduled the first call with a real company. So what I show you here is actually working. It is not just theory. It is not just a mock-up. It is a truly powerful system. One more thing. Maybe you think, okay, this is a little bit strange. Why is he doing that this way? This is exactly a system designed for myself. It makes sense to me. And this is, in my opinion, the most powerful aspect about agentic systems like Claude Code. You can build systems and software that makes sense to you. And at the end of the day, this is the perfect solution. Keep in mind that also the message selecting part and even the message sending part could be completely automated. But in my opinion and in my experience, as I already tested out quite a lot regarding these systems, you achieve a way better performance if you still have a little bit of manual editing and involvement in that process. I also personally receive a lot of cold outreach emails and messages, and I can tell you most of the time they are complete rubbish. Why? Because the people just want to automate everything and they don't want to put in any work, and this is reflected in their messages. Oftentimes the company name is in brackets, just a placeholder. The message is completely off, and I just want to avoid things like that. Because of that, I want to still manually check every single message that is going out to make sure that I also represent my company in the best possible light. But of course, this is up to you to decide. If you recreate that system, you can also set it on autopilot, fire and forget, and do whatever you want with it. That's it for today's video. Make sure to check out the description below, because there you find the prompt for the system. You will also find the link to my latest video course about Claude Code in case you want to learn that even deeper, and in case you want to have all that done for you, for your business. You will also find an opportunity there to work with me personally. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we see us in the next one.